Right, folks. Buckle up, because today we're diving deep into Haddonfield. We're talking John Carpenter's Halloween,
Oh, yeah.
a film that pretty much redefined horror as we know it. You know, the mask, the music,
Right.
the legend of Michael Myers. But what is it about this seemingly simple story that still chills us to the bone after all these years?
You hit the nail on the head with Simple Halloween is a masterclass in minimalist horror. You know, Carpenter relies more on atmosphere and suggestion than just showing you buckets of blood and gore.
Mm.
And you know what? It's incredibly effective.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack that a little.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Michael Myers right off the bat, and it's pretty stark.
Mhm.
6 years old,
Very.
in a clown costume, and boom, brutal murder. How does that set the stage for the kind of terror that Halloween delivers?
That opening scene, it's crucial, I think. You start with Michael as a child. He's committing this act that we consider purely evil. And by doing that, Carpenter throws any typical explanation right out the window. You know, there's no tragic backstory, no moment where he just snaps.
Right.
And that's honestly what's so unsettling about it. Michael Myers is the boogeyman, pure and simple.
Yeah.
He represents this primal fear, this unexplainable violence. And that's something that really resonates with us on a visceral level.
So it's not about understanding W.H.Y. Myers does what he does. It's about the terror of not knowing.
Exactly. And that lack of motive, that blankness behind the mask, that's what makes him the perfect slasher villain.
Speaking of slashers,
Yeah.
you can't deny that Halloween practically wrote the rule book for the genre.
Yeah.
You've got the masked killer, you've got the iconic stalking scenes, the group of friends who are completely unaware.
Yeah.
But then you have Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and she totally flips the script on that typical damsel in distress trope, doesn't she?
Totally. And that's where Halloween becomes more than just another slasher flick. Laurie Strode, she's the final girl, and she ends up just as important as Michael Myers. She's resourceful, she's brave.
Yes.
And in the end, she fights back.
Yeah.
She really challenges that victim stereotype that was so prevalent in horror at the time.
Oh, absolutely. And you can totally see her influence on pretty much every horror movie that came after Halloween.
Right.
But it's not just about Laurie's strength, is it?
Yeah.
It's that Carpenter gives us these glimpses into her life, her personality, her relationships. We see her babysitting, studying, having crushes. She feels real.
Absolutely. And that's huge because it makes it that much more terrifying when she becomes the target of Michael's obsession, you know?
Yeah.
We're invested in her survival at that point, so the stakes become so much higher.
And that brings us to, of course, the M music.
Oh, man.
I mean, that score, it's like Carpenter reached into our brains and created the sound of pure dread.
You know, it's wild to think that score was mostly just a single piano.
Really?
Talk about minimalist brilliance.
Yeah.
But you're right, those simple piano chords, the way he uses silence, it just builds this incredible sense of tension, anticipation.
Like the music itself is stalking us, you know, right alongside Michael Myers.
Yes, exactly.
It really is like the music becomes this character, right?
Yeah.
This ominous force that follows you.
Totally. And you know, it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
been, what, like over 40 years since Halloween came out?
Oh, yeah, it's a classic.
And it still feels relevant, you know? Still has that impact.
Yeah, it does.
So why do you think that is? Why is Halloween still so effective?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about those primal fears.
Yeah.
You know, the fear of the unknown, the darkness, the boogeyman under the bed.
Right. Exactly.
Those are timeless, right?
Yeah.
Every generation has those.
Exactly.
So even though, like, special effects and all that have come a long way since 1978, even though we might be more desensitized to violence now,
Yeah.
Halloween still gets under our skin.
It does. And I think it's because it's not about the graphic details, you
No.
know? It's about what we imagine.
Mhm.
Halloween, it leaves so much to the imagination. Those blanks are filled in with our own fears, and that's powerful.
Right.
That transcends time and technology.
So where does that leave a figure like Michael Myers in today's horror landscape?
Right.
Is he still scary after all these years? After all the slashers that came after him, you know, trying to do their own thing?
It's funny, isn't it? Because Michael Myers is so simple.
Yeah.
But that's his strength. He's this blank slate, you know? And we get to project our own fears onto that blankness.
So each generation kind of finds something to be terrified of in him.
Precisely. Think about it. In the 70s, he might have represented, like, the breakdown of family values.
Oh, interesting.
Or the dangers of the suburbs, that sort of thing.
Okay, I see.
But today, well, those fears are different, right?
Yeah.
Today we have social anxieties, we've got technological surveillance,
Yeah, that's a big one these days.
uncertainty about the future, all of
Yeah.
that. And Michael Myers, he absorbs those anxieties and then he reflects them right back at us.
And that's probably why they keep rebooting and sequelizing the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like each filmmaker can put their own spin on Michael Myers and tap into the anxieties of their own time.
Exactly. But I think there's something else that keeps Halloween relevant.
What's that?
It's something we touched on earlier. The characters, particularly Laurie Strode,
Oh, right.
she's not just a victim.
Yeah.
She's a fully realized character, someone we can connect with and care about. And that's huge. That elevates the whole film.
You're invested in her survival.
Yeah.
And that makes every encounter with Michael Myers so much more terrifying, you know?
Of course.
It's not just about the jump scares or the gore. It's about these people and what happens to them.
Exactly. And honestly, that's something that a lot of horror movies, especially slashers, they miss that.
Yeah, they do.
But when you care about the characters, the stakes are so much higher. And Halloween absolutely nailed that.
It's true, though, when you care about the people in these stories, the fear becomes so much more effective. And Halloween, man, it really strikes that balance.
It does. It's amazing how Carpenter can deliver these genuinely terrifying moments.
Yeah.
But then also, he never loses sight of those human elements, you know? And to think
Or-
he did all that tension, all those scares
Oh, yeah?
on basically no budget with a cast of mostly unknowns. It just goes to show you, you don't always need those big flashy effects or huge movie stars to scare the pants off people. You know what I mean?
That's true. It kind of reminds you that limitations can breed creativity sometimes.
100%.
Like sometimes a simple piano melody, a creepy silhouette,
Yeah.
and a story that really gets under your skin. That's all you need, right?
Absolutely. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway here.
What's that?
Halloween reminds us that horror at its core is about like confronting the unknown, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Those moments where we feel vulnerable,
Yeah.
when the world feels unpredictable,
Yeah.
when it feels dangerous.
Like anything could happen.
Exactly. It's that feeling of, hold on, what was that noise? Or, man, who is out there in the dark? Those primal instincts, they're hardwired into us. Totally. You can't escape them.
And we may not all have some masked killer stalking us on Halloween night, but, you know,
Hopefully not.
Halloween forces us to confront those fears head on, you know? Like, it reminds us that sometimes the scariest monsters, they're the ones we create in our own minds.
No, that's a good point. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Halloween, I gotta ask, for you, what aspect of Halloween do you think has aged the best?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But I think for me, it has to be Michael Myers himself.
Really?
He endures that blank canvas thing, you know. We can still project our anxieties onto him, makes him as relevant now as he was back in 78.
That's true. That's true. And for our listeners out there, I'd say think about how Halloween reflects those fears and anxieties of the time it was made, right?
And then ask yourself, how would Halloween be different if it were made today? You know, what new fears would it tap into? What would a modern day Michael Myers even represent?
Ooh, now that's a question.
Right. That's something to think about.
Definitely something to chew on.
This has been a blast exploring the dark side of Halloween. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, sleep tight and maybe don't answer the door if you hear that knocking.